Hello out there, and today will be the first of what will probably be a lot of follow-ups regarding the CRKT large Pilar. This is one of those knives I've been looking forward to for a long time, and if you saw my first video, the first one that I picked up was the one in D2, and I did have a lot of good things to say about it, but today what we're going to be doing is a little bit of a comparison between this one and the more standard all stainless steel one, talking about why I like one more than the other, and then we're actually going to try a blade swap. I tried doing that already for a video, and I filmed the video and it just didn't work out, so I didn't post the video, and the blade swap in that video didn't work. But what I realized is that the struggle that I was having was a lockup struggle getting these knives back together, and I realized that it might not have been the blade swap that was the problem. This is just a pretty difficult knife, at least these two were for me. Difficult to get back together right, and difficult to get back together and lock up really nicely. It took me a good amount of time to get this one back and correct. So I'm going to try it again, and we're going to do it sort of on video today with a couple different cuts, and throughout it I'm going to talk about the two knives and, like I said, which one I prefer. And let's just start with that. So the one out of these two that I prefer, and I know people are going to call me crazy, especially the people who don't like 8CR13 MOV, but this is the one that I like more than the D2 version. I certainly like D2 steel more than 8CR, but for me, the Pilar has just always been about that stainless steel frame lock, and this one feels more like what I expect and what I want. There are some upgrades and additions and things about this version that are better, and I'm going to get into those in a bit as well. And I also want to touch on the fact that in my first video I sort of harped on the fact that this knife is not as large as you might expect if you just had a regular size Pilar, you know, and I almost came off like negative talking about it that way, and I want to be very clear. I do really like this new design and the new model, and if I had to choose, you know, just having no experience with either of the two sizes, if I had to choose a size for one of my knives, it would definitely be the larger one over the original. So just saying, to make sure there's no confusion about that. But my reasoning, in addition to just the frame and the look of the knife, for liking this 8CR version more is, yeah, like that stainless steel, sure, with it being preferable to the G10, just feeling more like the classic Pilar, that's one thing. But all of the milling on the inside of the stainless steel frame here that you don't get on the D2 version, we're going to focus on this when I disassemble it, but you'll see, I mean, it cuts weight, it actually feels really good in the hand for a stainless steel frame lock, and also the action is better. The washers are different, and yeah, so actually let's just start disassembling, and I'll come back with the knives in pieces in just a minute, and we'll show you that stuff. And alright, so here we are with the two knives disassembled. I've moved the screws and put them into baggies just to keep them safe. They're not really all that relevant. The things that really jump out at you though, starting with the frame, let's take a look. Here is the base version, which is stainless steel all the way through, like I said, with the 8CR13 MOV. And you can see all of the machining that's done on the inside just to make these frame pieces just more lightweight. So really nice attention there by CRKT to do that. But on the D2 version, you don't have any of that. So here's that frame on one side, and then here's the G10. One thing that's interesting about the G10 is not that it's a bad piece of G10, but I actually think it looks more attractive on the inside, on the opposite side. You know, if they would have polished it up and left this like this grainy kind of line, I think it would look a little bit cooler. And the CRKT's done that actually with a number of models, but this one they went with more of like a traditional kind of, I guess, what is that, peel ply texture, and it's good, but yeah, nothing too special. The third version is a G10 version of the 8CR13 with another satin blade. And that one, I believe, has the same style frame as this. So the all stainless steel frame is the only one that gets all that extra machining to cut the weight that extra steel side will get you, I guess. The other big difference is the washers. So we have the plasticky Teflon. I'm not really sure of the distinction there on both of these, but as you can see, the two washers on the stainless steel one, they're both different sizes, and both of these sizes are bigger than the two over here. And looking at them, yeah, I mean, I just noticed immediately when I unboxed this knife that it was smoother out of box. And so maybe that extra surface area is part of the reason why. But the big issue that I had, so I tried this blade swap. I put the knife back together, and it was the D2 blade on the stainless steel frame. And I put the knife back together, and it just wasn't locking up properly. That was the problem that I had. It just wasn't like fitting, and I was getting just like tons of movement. And if you look at these knives, the blades are not actually identical. You take a look, the flipper tabs are actually different. So it's a different design. It's a different, at least on the flipper tab. So maybe the tolerances are different. Maybe it's just not possible for them to be swapped. Maybe it's just machining nuances. Who knows? But what I realized when I thought that the experiment had failed and I tried to put the D2 version just back together on its own, that one didn't lock up very well either. And I realized that actually getting the pivot through properly was very difficult. And so I was struggling with getting the pivot perfectly lined up. And if you don't get it lined up, you can still insert it almost as far as it needs to go and still tighten the screw down, and it feels and looks like it's good, but then there's obviously going to be play. So that's what I realized, and I had to disassemble again and make sure it was perfectly lined up, and then it snapped back together just a little bit better, and that provided, you know, the kind of lockup that I had out of box from the factory. And so I was just thinking, well, maybe that's what happened when I tried to do the blade swap, so let's give it another shot. So that's what we're going to do now that we've sort of done a bit of a breakdown, and yeah, I'll check back with you with that once I get it together. So here we are. The blades are swapped, and are you ready for the news? What do you think? Did it work? Did it not work? Guys, the good news is it worked. Yeah, so I stand corrected. I actually posted on Instagram about how it was just a fail when I first attempted it, and no, I was the fail. This blade swap actually has worked perfectly for both knives. The first one I did was the D2 into the stainless steel frame. Lockup on this is perfect, no up and down, no left and right. Pretty smooth opening and closing. Centering, a little bit off, but that could still be adjusted. So looks good. And then this one is now the black frame with the black G10 and the 8CR in that one. And yeah, this one is perfectly fine too. No movement, no left and right, no up and down. Centering on this one is actually pretty close to the middle, if I can get that focused. So yeah, I guess that's definitely a good thing, and it actually creates a ton of other possibilities because in addition to the blades now, I mean, just a lot of other components are interchangeable. The hardware would be interchangeable, I believe, and you know, the clips, the back spacers. So I mean, if you wanted to do a full swap, I mean, you could actually create some good color contrasts in addition to if you were looking to mod either of these knives the way that I am. So very neat, very neat. I'm excited about it. Yeah, one thing though, if you are watching this and you're thinking I have to do this immediately, like this is a cool thing. One, I agree, but two, if you are not well versed in taking apart knives, this might not be the first model I'd choose. Again, like I said, it was very difficult to get back together. I would, if I had a rating of like 1 to 10, the most difficult knife to take apart and put back together, and 1 being the easiest, this would be like a 7 or an 8. Just a real pain in the butt. A lot of Loctite, a lot of like hardware that is screwed into housings where it's just going to rotate with the other side, so you need multiple drivers. Very high risk of stripping screws on this one, guys. So yeah, just be careful if you're going to do it, but for me the benefit is certainly there. So Yeah, very excited about this, guys. My apologies if I led you astray with my previous post about this a while back, but as you can see, we certainly do have a successful blade swap. And now I sort of have the best of both worlds with a D2 blade on the frame that I want. So wish they would do this in satin too, but that's a story for another day. All right. Any other questions, comments, complaints, suggestions, let me know down below. But I appreciate you watching. Take care. Have a good one.